I uploaded over 500 daily videos on YouTube without a day off. Sounds crazy? At times it felt like it was. It's been one of the most challenging experiences of my life, but also the most fulfilling. So today I wanted to share some of the learnings with you from this journey and explore how it's helped me to refine the way I think about entrepreneurship, but also the way that I engage with projects and grow moving forward. Welcome to Mindset Monday. I think it'll be an episode that you enjoy. We'll keep it as a conceptual discussion so you can overlay and utilize these insights for your own work or projects moving forward. Of course, stay until the end. I'll share my biggest takeaway from this experience. But before we get into the learnings and the insights from the journey, I think we need to take it back and go right back to the beginning. So the year is 2020. The world is in lockdown, we're running out of toilet paper, and you've probably completed that same 5-kilometer loop around your local house or apartment for the 100th time. It was a time that I'm sure many of you, as you reflect on, we were all seeking connection, inspiration, and new challenges. It was a difficult period, and I know that myself personally during that time, I was looking to do new things just to really invigorate what was quite a difficult year. From early AM wake-ups to cold showers or daily journaling. I thought I'd tried it all, but I know that I spend a lot of time thinking about the markets, the broader macroeconomic space, working in management consulting. It ties in a lot with what we do on the day-to-day. And so I was wondering if there was a way that I could incorporate all of these into a new aspect to develop new skills and to provide a new challenge during what was a tumultuous year. And so then it came to me. I know that when we're researching on the markets, and I wonder if you can all empathize with this, we often end up in our own echo chambers, thinking about the same types of companies, sectors, or using the same analytical models. And so I thought of a new challenge. 100 companies or 100 ideas in 100 days that we'd look into across a range of different sectors to escape the echo chamber, but also to develop a broad new remit of things that I was interested in learning about. When I played with this idea, I thought initially maybe I'll put it up with blogs. Maybe I'll just keep them within my investing journal that I write on the day-to-day. But then eventually I heard about YouTube. I'd never made a video before, definitely was not creatively inclined and had no idea how to use an editing software, but decided from the time of making this decision to the time that you see this first video here, that was a 4-hour period. I didn't want to get stuck in paralysis by analysis. I wanted to dive in, take that leap of faith, and work out how to build the wings on the way down. I remember one of those key focuses during that year for me was say yes more often. And I continued to try and test and ask the question of why not. And through that process, we've had the opportunity as we've done these 500 plus videos, we've now evolved and we're actually closer to 650 plus daily videos without this day off. Really, a lot of these learnings I've been able to capture under 3 key buckets. Now, of course, these are not exhaustive. There are a range of other insights and we'll share those at the end. But the 3 key buckets where a lot of these insights have come with have been surrounding that entrepreneurial and more technical skill development, surrounding subject matter expertise and the meta skill of learning and being able to really enjoy learning. And then, of course, surrounding mindset, discipline, and setting up those frameworks that make the opportunity and the process one that we can continue to focus on and stay sustained at over long periods of time. It's difficult. Sticking at anything for 500 plus days was hard. I probably didn't appreciate the consistency and how difficult it is to stay sustained at something for so long. It was, of course, amplified and made more difficult while I was balancing a full-time job, working in management consulting. Obviously, I have passions and projects outside of YouTube as well. Daily videos were difficult, but I realized that often, a lot of the times we constrain what we can do pragmatically saying maybe we're just not good enough or we don't have the capacity, the resources, the understanding. But often we're not constrained by capacity, but it's a willingness to try. If I had have set out initially and said, okay, I'm going to do 100 videos in 100 days and thought, how will I do that? I probably would have come up with 100 reasons or 100 excuses of why we couldn't do that. However, what I said was I was going to focus on the why, not the how. The how would come, but the why was I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, and we'll work out the process to get there through the journey. And I think a similar type of discussion surrounding that is focusing on the opportunity, not the obligation. So often in life we think about, what is this going to cost us in terms of time, resources, energy, output? But there is always an opportunity that comes from things. And now it takes a lot of time for us to be able to reframe these things. Of course, it comes more naturally to some rather than to others. But we always do have the opportunity to reframe things. I think this is where a lot of the magic happens. I was thinking about another example for this, and I was just thinking, if someone said, okay, you've got to wake up every single morning at 6 a.m. and do 10 push-ups at 6 a.m., whether it's rain, hail, or shine, out in the cold, and then go back to bed. Maybe you do it for 1 or 2 days. If you didn't really know you were doing it, why you were doing it, maybe you do it for a week, 2 weeks. But they said you have to get to 100 days or you fail the challenge. Most people would probably fail at some stage during winter or after a big night out, after they were tired, whenever that was. But if the person giving the challenge then said, if you do this, 10 push-ups, 6 a.m., 100 days in a row, I'll give you $10 million and donate another $10 million to your favorite charity. I think most people would work out how they could do it. They would work out the opportunity of how to pursue that. And so what that speaks to is the fact that we're not capacity constrained. We have the internal capacity to be able to achieve these things, but often it's motivation. And obviously what we just spoke about there, that was an extrinsic motivator. But when we're able to provide ourselves with intrinsic motivators and be able to drive ourselves intrinsically with things that we want to focus on, I think that's where a lot of the magic happens. And obviously it's not easy to do, particularly with so much of the focus in the world about external gratification and different types of measures that are all extrinsically focused. But if we're able to focus on the opportunity to grow, to learn, to understand, to develop new skill sets, to meet new people, well, these are all intrinsic motivators, and they can often drive us towards success when motivation fades, because you all would have known that quote that motivation is temporary, but discipline is what continues to drive us forwards. And then one final note on mindset. It's a simple one. We all know this, but I think it's worth continuing to reaffirm ourselves with, which is if we don't quit, we can't lose. Now, the pathway to wherever we want to head in life, it's never linear. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know the trajectory or the velocity that it might take us on. But if we don't quit and we just keep turning up day in and day out and just doing a little bit, well, eventually over long periods of time, we're going to end up where we want to get to and perhaps even surpass those initial goals that we might have been able to conceptualize. And so that second bucket of learning, it has more to do with entrepreneurship and the technical skill development that we can attain through these types of processes. Ultimately, entrepreneurs wear many hats. I think most people are familiar with that. When we work in jobs, often we're more siloed and unidimensional. Now, of course, that doesn't speak to every type of role, but often it is more so, whereas entrepreneurship, we have to spread our wings a bit further. I know just over the past few months in terms of the channel itself, from graphic design to video editing, to marketing, to admin, to interviewing and everything in between, there's a lot of different skills that I probably would never have even thought about trying without being compelled to do this through these projects. And I know for a lot of people it can seem overwhelming, but if you're someone who loves learning, who loves the opportunity to develop new skills, and who loves the opportunity to be a beginner, to try new things, and just to get your feet wet and maybe dip your toes in, you don't always have to know what the output looks like, but to be willing to learn, well, I'd encourage you to give something a shot, whether it's a side project or a side hustle, whether it's taking more of an entrepreneurship, leadership role within your workplace. There is always opportunities to develop that responsibility, accountability, and the opportunity to guide more of your projects or processes rather than just having a process-driven and more prescriptive type of output. And I think through entrepreneurship, in whatever form that looks like for you, whether it's within an organization or whether it's something that you develop yourself, you do have the opportunity to learn that new skill every day. And I think what's exciting about it is you get to choose your own adventure in terms of what skill you want to develop, how much time you want to spend. Do you want to spend a lot of time doing X, Y, Z? Do you want to focus on the marketing? Do you want to focus on the sales and the business development or the more technical skills, such as in this case, it could be the editing or the analysis or building of the models, the research, however that looks. But I think the most important part out of all of that is developing the meta skill. And the meta skill in this space is the willingness and the capacity to learn. When I think about it, it's like learning a new language, right? Say if you knew you were going to learn 3 new languages. Well, there's really 2 different ways you could go about it. First and foremost, you could learn French first, and then Japanese second, and then Spanish third. As each individual language, you just added them in bit by bit by bit. And you didn't really use the learnings or the insights or the processes to help your next language. You just learned them as 3 individual components. Or you could spend a bit more time initially when you were setting up the processes, developing the meta skill of how to learn a language. Now, it's going to be different for each language you use, of course, but there are similar types of processes and frameworks that you could develop that will shortcut and save you the time on building skills 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on and so forth. And it will also ensure that you're able to have the most efficient and optimized system. And I think that's the same with learning. Nobody ever optimizes learning perfectly. But if we can get familiar with the way that we learn, and each individual person is going to learn very differently. One person will be different to someone else. Someone will be visual. Someone will like reading. Someone will like writing it down. Others will be auditory and like hearing it. But if we can understand how we learn, how we do it best, and what's the best way to reinforce our learning, well, that is going to mean that we ultimately put ourselves in the best position to learn the most we can and the fastest that we can moving forward. And then that third bucket has to do with subject matter expertise. Now that's going to be different for each individual person and each individual project. Of course, if you're doing a creative art project, that'll be very different to if you're doing a financial modeling project, which will be very different to if you're trying to learn sport and develop skills in that way. But Malcolm Gladwell, through his famous book Outliers, if you haven't read it, fantastic book, I would definitely recommend it, well worth a read. But he really popularized the theory of the 10,000 hour theory when he's talking about subject matter expertise or domain-specific mastery. And of course, that's going to look different for everyone. And spending 500 plus daily videos, closer to 650 plus days in a row now, spending 4, 6, 8 hours developing different skill sets was fantastic. And it definitely helped to accelerate and catalyze the progression towards that 10,000 hours. But what I learned, which was really fascinating, was something I'd never really conceptualized before, even though I think intuitively we understand it on a surface level. So before these videos, before the 650 plus daily videos that I'd made, for many years I've been writing in an investing journal and spending a lot of time thinking about the macroeconomic space, building models, doing analysis, looking into a range of different companies. I've been doing this for many years, and of course it's been fascinating. I've developed a good skill set from that. But I really felt the knowledge accelerate rapidly over this past 650 days. And when I thought about why, I was able to distill it down to one core component. And I think that was the cross-pollination of the research, the base level of knowledge, the skill set of being able to research and analyze, but really combining that with unique experiences. Now, how often has it been where you've had to give a speech on something, or you've had to prepare a presentation, or develop some charts and graphs, and so you've had to think about the insights and the data to another level where you realize, hey, that's stuck in my mind a lot more than just, say, reading a textbook or having to study for something for a qualification exam that you've got up. I'm sure many people can remember back to university when you're studying for something, you've got it learnt in your mind, you've studied, and 3 months later, you can't even remember the topic, let alone the actual insight itself. Whereas if you've had to give a speech on something and you've had to spend your time conceptualizing it, developing your understanding to a deeper level, you always just seem to remember it to another level. And there is that classic quote that says, if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old, then maybe you don't really understand it that well at all. And I know there's been so many videos that I've been making where I've tried to explain it, I've tried to speak it out, I thought I understood it in theory, but when I tried to explain it, I couldn't really explain it. It was back to the drawing board. I think trying to cross-pollinate or trying to intersect your knowledge and learning from, say, reading a textbook or listening to a video or speaking to someone and engaging with them, and then trying to add on the second layer on top where you are sharing that knowledge with someone else, where you're building charts or visuals out of it. Maybe you're writing a blog. In whatever way that you're able to continue to build on top of that initial knowledge, that's where the magic happens. And that was something that I didn't really appreciate until I started making videos on it. I'd encourage you, in whatever you're fascinated to learn about, see how you can share that knowledge further. Not only because sharing knowledge is really the core of how communities and society grows and learns and develops together, but also because it's going to help you. So it's got that real dual benefit. And I think something that goes hand in hand with that is the willingness to be a student and the willingness to fail. I think so often we cloud ourselves and our decision-making frameworks with pragmatism. We say, we're not ready to do X, Y, Z. We don't have the resources, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the knowledge base, we haven't spent enough time learning this, so we'll do it in 2 months or 1 week or 6 months. But we end up with paralysis by analysis, and we just never end up chasing our dreams or pursuing something that we're interested in. But I think we should be willing to fail forward, to learn, to grow, and to not be the finished product yet, but to know that through the process, you're able to get one step forward and one step closer day in and day out. Another thing that I've learned in terms of this same bucket as well is, we all know it, surround yourselves by people who are smarter than you are. I know through the interview series that we have on the channel, the opportunity to interview some of the leading CEOs across the countries, across sectors, it's been so fascinating just to be able to be that fly on the wall and to be able to speak and engage with them and be able to learn just a little bit day in and day out from each and every one of them. And I think this is a learning that we can apply to everything that we do, whether it's in the workplace and getting mentors who have done it before, whether it's through side hustles and speaking to founders who have got experience and subject matter expertise in that domain, whether it's on the sports field and speaking to someone who's more experienced and who can guide you through the process and the development. We always have the opportunity to surround ourselves by people who have done it before, who have got that experience and who are willing to teach and learn. But often it's just about having that courage to have the conversation, to reach out and to try and build those relationships, which really is the core of everything we do in life. And so then that brings us to the number one learning, the key takeaway that I've had through it all. It's quite a simple one actually at its core, but I think it's something that we can overlay to every decision-making process and framework that we have moving forward. And that is the concept of a North Star. The North Star is a discussion that explores what is our core truth or our core principle or focus that we want to achieve from something that we do. So for an example with this channel, the North Star for me was focusing on learning. But when I was thinking about other people's North Stars, others could have been focused on extrinsic motivators, such as how many subscribers or views or maybe financial freedom. Others could have been focused on developing a community, building a platform, engaging with a new network, or sharing knowledge. Whatever that ends up being, your North Star is something that you focus on, and it really helps you align your decisions that you have through that process to make sure that you're always aiming towards where you want to go. If we don't have a North Star, then we end up just making a range of isolated random decisions, and one might be to go to the left, one might be to go to the right, but you never end up with a cohesive set of decisions pushing you towards your goal. And you could think about how this could work in a workplace setting. For some people, their North Star might be climbing that corporate ladder and getting as many promotions as quickly as possible, while others might be on developing a broad skill set. And so maybe they go for a broad range of projects, which means they advance a little bit slower, but they develop a different set of skills. Someone else might be developing a broad network so that they can develop a startup within a similar type of ecosystem. Again, that would look like a very different set of pathways forward in comparison to someone who's just looking to climb the ladder forward. There is no right or wrong with your North Star, but the most important is that we all spend our time thinking about these North Stars so we don't end up just floating in the river, being taken wherever the water and the waves take us, but so that we can set our sails the right direction. And it doesn't mean it's going to be linear or straightforward, but it means that we've got that North Star and that end goal and that focus. And I think ultimately this is a really important takeaway that can be overlaid into every type of domain that we pursue in our life. And so they have been some of the most significant learnings that I've taken over the past 500 plus or 650 plus daily videos without a day off. It's been one of the most challenging but fulfilling experiences of my life. And as a big thank you for staying till the end, I've got a few last insights and a quote that I wanted to leave you with as well. But before we get into those, I'm very keen to know your thoughts. This is the first video in a potential new series called Mindset Mondays. It's been often requested on the channel, so let us know your thoughts if you'd like to see more of it, if you've got any suggestions, but also drop in a comment below with your favorite mindset or productivity hack that you use on the day-to-day. And so with some final thoughts to leave you with, I think it's important that where possible, we try to create win-win situations where we never lose, we only learn. It's also important that we find something that we really enjoy and we can stick at for long periods of time. If I made a channel and tried to do 500 plus daily videos on, say, lawn mowing or dishwashing or something else like that, I probably wouldn't have had the consistency to stick at it. But I'm sure that many people who love lawn mowing, for example, could have done 500 or 1,000 plus daily videos on that. So it's finding something you enjoy and being able to stick at it for long periods of time. And there is that magic quote that says, life begins at the end of our comfort zones. Sometimes it is just about taking that leap of faith and building your wings on the way down. I know I'm only at the very beginning of this journey. There is still a long way to go, but I really am excited and willing to put in the work, to continue to learn, to develop, and to continue to grow with the best community on YouTube. And I thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of that community. I'm looking forward to seeing where we head from here. I wanted to leave you with a final quote. If I don't have red, I use blue. That's from Picasso. And to me, what that represents is there's never going to be the perfect time, circumstance, set of resources or capabilities. We'll never be perfectly ready. But if we don't have red, we use blue. Sometimes we just have to take that step and make magic with what we do have around us. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the next video. For now, stay well and happy investing.